The train arrived with a scream of metal and steam, but the man standing on the wooden platform felt nothing of the noise. His chest was tight, his hands rough and clenched, his eyes fixed on the empty space where his future was supposed to appear. He had ordered a plain mail-order bride because life had taught him not to hope for more than survival. He believed love was a luxury for other men. Then she stepped off the stage, and in a single breathless moment, everything he thought he knew about himself, about loneliness, and about fate began to fall apart. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and quiet miracles that change broken lives, take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that may need them most. His name was Elias Carter, and he lived a life built on endurance rather than dreams. The land he owned was wide and unforgiving, much like the years that had shaped him. After his parents died, he learned early that tenderness did not keep food on the table and that grief did not plow fields or mend fences. He worked from dawn until nightfall, speaking little, trusting less, and allowing silence to become his closest companion. When loneliness finally grew too heavy to ignore, it did not come as a dramatic ache but as a slow realization that there would be no one to remember him when the work was done. That was when he sent for a bride, not out of romance, but necessity. Someone to help run the house, someone steady, someone plain enough not to leave. He imagined her as a shadow, quiet and grateful, a woman who would accept the life he could offer without question. The arrangement felt safe that way. He did not want beauty that invited comparison, or warmth that demanded vulnerability. He wanted order. Predictability. A solution to a problem. The letters he received were brief and modest, written with careful restraint. They spoke of hard years, of loss, of willingness. Nothing about dreams. Nothing about hope. He approved the arrangement without hesitation, believing he was protecting both of them from disappointment. The station was crowded that day, men in worn vests, women clutching parcels, steam curling through iron beams like ghosts of other journeys. Elias stood apart, hat low, shoulders tense. He told himself not to expect anything beyond what he had arranged. When the conductor called out the arrivals, his heart still betrayed him by pounding harder than it had in years. Then she appeared. She stepped down from the carriage slowly, not timid, not bold, but steady. Her dress was simple, but the way she held herself gave it quiet grace. Sunlight caught in her hair, lighter than he had imagined, braided neatly at the nape of her neck. Her face held the marks of hardship, not scars but strength, eyes clear and searching, as if she was not afraid to meet whatever waited for her. She was not plain. She was not small. She carried herself like someone who had survived storms and learned how to stand afterward. In that instant, Elias felt something shift deep inside him, a crack in the walls he had spent a lifetime building. Panic followed quickly. This was not what he ordered. This was not safe. People nearby paused, sensing something unspoken, the way moments sometimes announce themselves without words. She scanned the platform, her gaze passing over faces until it landed on him. There was no recognition at first, only curiosity. Then understanding softened her expression, and she walked toward him without hesitation. Elias felt exposed, like a man who had prepared for winter and found himself standing in spring. He nodded stiffly, offered to carry her bag, and turned toward the wagon without looking back. The ride home was quiet, the road long and dusty. He expected awkwardness, but what unsettled him more was the calm. She did not fidget or chatter. She watched the land with interest, not judgment, as if already imagining how to live within it. Her name was Clara, and she had buried more than one version of herself before boarding that train. She had known hunger, grief, and the weight of being unwanted. The decision to become a mail-order bride was not made lightly. It was a gamble born of necessity, but also courage. She did not expect love. She expected work, survival, perhaps companionship if fortune was kind. What she did not expect was the loneliness she recognized so clearly in the men beside her. Life together began cautiously. Elias kept to his routines, rising early, returning late, speaking only when necessary. Clara learned the house quickly, the rhythms of the land, the unspoken rules of his world. She did not complain. She did not ask for more. Yet slowly, almost imperceptibly, she began to change the space around them. Meals became warmer, not just in temperature but in care. The house smelled less like dust and more like something alive. Curtains were mended, shelves organized, light invited in. Elias resisted noticing. He told himself this was temporary, that attachment would only complicate things. But at night, when the house settled and the wind moved through the fields, he found himself listening for her steps, aware of her presence in a way that both comforted and frightened him. He had spent years surviving alone. Letting someone matter felt dangerous. The real challenge came when the land failed them. A harsh season arrived early, frost-biting crops before they could be harvested. Supplies dwindled. The isolation that had once felt manageable now pressed in from all sides. Elias worked harder, pushing himself past exhaustion, determined not to fail. Clara watched him quietly, seeing the cracks form beneath his strength. She did not confront him. She joined him. She rose before dawn, learned tasks he never expected her to handle, and carried burdens without complaint. In those shared silences, something began to grow. Trust, slow and fragile. Elias noticed how she spoke to the animals, how she found beauty in small things, how she never treated the land as a prison but as a promise. For the first time in years, he laughed, surprised by the sound of it. It startled them both. Still, fear lingered. Elias believed that if he allowed himself to care, he would lose everything. He had lost before, and the memory of it lived in his bones. Clara, sensing his distance, wrestled with her own doubts. She wondered if she was only fulfilling a role, if she would always remain an arrangement rather than a choice. The turning point came quietly, as most real transformations do. One evening, a storm rolled in without warning, violent and unforgiving. Elias was caught in the fields when the sky broke open. By the time he stumbled home, soaked and injured, Clara was waiting. She tended to him through the night, her hands steady, her presence unwavering. In his fevered state, the walls he held so tightly finally gave way. He allowed himself to lean into her care, to trust that she would not disappear when things became difficult. When the storm passed, something else had shifted. The house felt different, warmer not just in comfort but in meaning. Elias began to speak more, sharing fragments of his past, the losses that had shaped him, the fears he never named. Clara listened without trying to fix him, offering only understanding. In return, she shared her own story, not in bitterness, but in quiet honesty. Two wounded lives, finding strength not in perfection, but in survival. The land slowly recovered. So did Elias. He no longer saw Clara as a solution he had ordered, but as a force that had entered his life and reshaped it. Love did not arrive as a grand declaration. It arrived in shared work, in small kindnesses, in the realization that loneliness no longer defined his days. Neighbors noticed the change. The once silent farm now carried laughter, warmth, signs of life. Elias stood taller, not because he was stronger, but because he was no longer carrying everything alone. Clara found a sense of belonging she had never known, not because she was needed, but because she was chosen. As the seasons turned, Elias understood something that had taken him a lifetime to learn. He had ordered a plain bride to protect himself from hope, but hope had found him anyway. It arrived not as fantasy, but as partnership. Not as perfection, but as resilience. The woman who stepped off that stage did not just change his life. She taught him that love was not something to fear, but something that could heal even the most guarded heart. If this story is touching you, if it reminds you that even the most broken beginnings can lead to something beautiful, please take a moment to comment and share what this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. Near the end of his days, Elias would often think back to that moment on the platform, to the man he was before hope stepped into his life wearing a simple dress and carrying quiet strength. He would realize that the greatest risk he ever took was not ordering a bride, but allowing himself to believe he deserved more than survival. If this story moved your heart, inspired you, or reminded you of the power of second chances, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and leave a heartfelt comment below. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive, reaching those who may still be standing on their own lonely platform, waiting for life to change.